Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Randi Newton, and I'm here with Jennifer Gimenez, Tim Ryan, and Martha Duke. And we are here to discuss being sober in the time of COVID. So as you all know, we have been dealing with this crazy pandemic that I don't think anyone saw coming for a little over a year. And it's actually a pandemic within a pandemic because, as you all know, the war against drugs and alcohol are always, it's been a constant in our lives. And now dealing with COVID on top of that adds more challenges. So we're going to discuss that. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them below. And Alex, our moderator, will answer them and alert us. And so let's just go around and everyone introduce themselves. I'm Randi Newton. And Martha, why don't you go ahead?
Hi guys, my name is Martha Duke, and I am the creator of Out Loud Recovery, which I have a blog, my Out Loud Recovery, and I am a sober mom. I have 3 years and 3 months of sobriety, so
yay!
Thank you. And I'm the proud mom of 2 boys, and they are 17 and 13.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gimenez. Thank you, Martha.
Oh.
Thank you. Hi, let me do it again. Hi, I'm Jennifer Gimenez Ryan, and thank you, Martha. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Randi, and thank you, my gorgeous husband. I'm 15 years, 2 months, and 11 days sober. And I count. Yeah, some people are like, why would you do that? Sometimes I'll be like 15
years and 2 months.
January, February, March, 15th. Okay. Then today's the 26th.
Math wasn't
so
my...
yeah. I am a stepmom, and I'm a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a woman in recovery. I am also a survivor of abuse, mental health issues, physical, sexual, mental, emotional abuse I've overcome as well. And I talk about that in eating disorders because it's important to tell on myself. It's what I learned. And if anyone's struggling with any of that stuff, I totally get it.
Awesome. I am Tim Ryan, her better half. I am 8.5 years clean and sober. I got sober in a prison cell with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and Big Perk, my former Chicago gang chief, Sally. Had a documentary. I'm an author. I wrote a book. I'm an activist. I'm started a nonprofit where we guide and direct indigent people into treatment. My wife and I speak all over the country and internationally, and I'm an interventionist.
Oh, I'm a model. I was discovered modeling, and I'm one of the youngest girls ever on the cover of American Elle and all these other magazines. So I was kind of like a supermodel back in my day, and then I started acting. So I'm an actress as well.
Bam.
Wow. Nice.
It's like so bad.
If you've seen the movie Blow with Johnny Depp, based on Boston George Young, she played the Colombian drug lord's wife and spoke all her lines in a Spanish Colombian dialect. So yeah, check out Blow.
Check out
Awesome.
Blow. I've seen it like a bajillion times. So Black Betty's my jam.
That's where I come in. That's exactly where I come in. I'm the crazy Jack Clement one from the 70s. That's exactly the intro.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, you guys, I'm so glad. One of my first questions was, how long have you all been sober? And you all just answered that just magically. And I guess, what were your first thoughts when the pandemic came upon us? Because I know personally, I thought it was something I never expected our world to go through, at least in this lifetime. I don't think anyone expects a pandemic to happen. And well, one certainly did. And I know that for me, I was proud of how I handled myself during this time. I didn't pick up, I didn't drink, I didn't use. And I found that I got through this time through a great support system, therapy. I did gain, the COVID-19 plus a few, but I found that was, hey, I'm not going to be too hard on myself. It's better than picking up the bottle.
Yeah.
So how about you guys? Like, how did you handle this? And what was helpful for you during this time that we're still going through? I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but
Well, Randi, I have to give a giant shout out to you because you were basically my COVID buddy when this first started. Because as a single mom in New York City, my income stopped overnight. So this is the crazy thing was I almost relapsed that January. That January, I was in a pretty dark spot. And I went to meet my boyfriend for dinner and I ordered a drink. And I remember staring at the drink and I was like, if he doesn't show up I'm bargaining with myself, right? I'm like, if he doesn't show up in 10 minutes, I'll drink this drink. He shows up. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, and he's like, that's not going to do anything. Well, what was crazy was I was in that state January. Come February, they're talking this might happen. March, boom, happens. Stuck at home with my 2 kids, no income. I had like $500 in the bank. My kids are having to get free lunch from down the street. Like I never saw myself in that situation. What like we're basically at a food bank, And what happened? That mama bear mode kicked in and I was like, you know what? Gotta hustle, gotta make money, gotta like keep this ship together. And as soon as survival became key, the thought of alcohol was not there because the one thing that I have learned is that alcohol never fixed or solved any crisis for me. And I can't imagine being stuck at home drinking. That doesn't sound like it would have helped. But I know from a mom perspective, being thrust into this role of like, now we're homeschooling, now we're doing this, like, families having to send us food, like, and it was very chaotic here in New York. But I don't know, having just being resourceful and staying sober was the best way for me to get through the first half of it. The second half of it, no, that's a whole nother story.
Jen and Tim, how about you guys? Like, what were your thoughts when this whole thing first began?
So Martha, I'm so glad you didn't drink. Like, what a miracle. Like the thought of, I still have those every once in a blue moon, like the thought like alcohol sounds like it will help me and fix my issues, right? And then it doesn't. I know it doesn't. So I'm so grateful I can think it through and I have tools and all that. But like, how do we get through this? Through trial and error, really. Honestly, like we we were hearing about it and all that stuff, and then we were in Texas and we heard that like, okay, there's going to be a lot, like it's really happening. This is really existing. People are getting sick. We're like, what? We're coming to LA. Like I decided to get back into acting because I put acting on hold for the last 6 years or 5 years. And I get 3 movies, you guys, and a pilot. Like out of like within 2 months, I get like, they come to me and I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I guess I'm doing the right thing, right? So we come from Texas to Florida. To LA. It's we get home on Tuesday, Thursday, California shut down, Friday, everything canceled. Or everything canceled Thursday and California shut down Friday. Yep. It went one way or the other. And everything, we lost everything. 85 speaking events, like our bread and butter. Like we looked at each other a week into it and I'm running around the house like a girl with a chicken with a head cut off, and Tim's reading a book in the bedroom, and I run in the room a week later and I'm like, hey babe, and he looks at me, he's like, yeah, and I was like, I gotta tell you something. He's like, huh? And I'm like, my mental health is going to be affected here. I can see it. I can feel it. Like I'm running around. I'm like, and my alcoholism might get affected. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, there's a pandemic within a pandemic about to happen. And boom, he was like, we were off to the races talking about it. And thank God, like I got to say, and I've said this before in other interviews, is I've been alone all my life. Tim and I have gotten together over 2 years ago, and now we're, I'm in a partnership, and I am so grateful that I had him, to to walk this journey with me, but I understand being lonely. And I understand there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with wanting to commit suicide or killing themselves or relapsing or, you know, or just an active disease. And, you know, I feel that we've been able to reinvent ourselves, but through trial and error. And there was weeks, and I'll be really honest, like Tim was probably going to kick me underneath, going, what are you doing? But there's been weeks where I'm like, how are we going to get through this? Right? Like, how are we going to pay our rent, you know, or whatever? And we got through it. And I'm so grateful that no matter what, you know, I think showing up for the next indicated thing is a key here.
Wow, that was a lot. I thought it was fake. I didn't believe COVID was real. I went down the rabbit hole. And then obviously when things got shut down and all these speaking events are getting canceled, I mean, conferences with 1,200-1,500 people. And I just kind of sat back and went, wow. And then we ended up getting COVID, and we had it for 8 weeks, and it about killed both of us. I would not, I'm the guy that says, hey, let's go live on Facebook when we have COVID. And next thing, you know, we're on Inside Edition and Tamron Hall and the Abrams angle, and the list goes on and on. But people could look at us as real people that were talking about it. But I got sober in a prison cell, and I kicked a huge heroin habit and almost a gallon of vodka a day. Didn't sleep for a month. I would do that again instead of having COVID. That's how bad it was for us. Now, a lot of people haven't had symptoms, but the aftermath of, you know, alcohol sales through the roof, mental health through the roof, suicide through the roof. Hearing these old timers that had 20, 30 years sober, committing suicide because they couldn't get to meetings. They had to go to the Zoom world. So yeah, I'll end with that, but it shifted the entire world upside down, not just people in recovery. And Martha, thank you for not picking up a drink. Thank you for being here 3.5 years sober.
Yeah. So yeah, the thing with about the fact that, so I suffer from, I have CPTSD, and also I get very bad seasonal depression. So usually, and January is the anniversary of my father's death. So January has always historically been a very trying time for me. And, you know, it was like, you know, you see it in the movies and you see it, that whole image of the person, like, well, I don't walk around wanting a drink all the time. I'm not like that at all. It's like, you know, it doesn't pass my mind. It doesn't go through my mind. But I would be lying if there were not times when things were so heavy that I'm just like, duh, an old fashioned would taste so good right now. But I know I have never just had one in my whole life, ever, even from the first time I drank, I did not have just one. And but it did put me in that survival mode, and having my kids. I mean, there's a lot of difficulties with having you know, children independence, but also, you know, I wasn't alone. So as stressful as it has been for all of us to be on top of each other and try to make all our own spaces. I mean, I'm in 700 square feet. I bought like a little corner desk, and they have little desks, and it's kind of like we've cordoned off portions of the house that are now ours. And there's times when we've all wanted to kill each other, and I'm like, why do I have 2 dogs? But I didn't like go have 2 kids and 2 dogs, like knowing there was going to be a pandemic.
See, so
at least I wasn't alone.
But here's what I would say to that, because Jennifer gets like that, and here's my answer to that: it's better than a 6x9 prison cell.
Exactly.
I love my husband. His journey is so like inspiring. But like when we were in like, you know, week 1 of like scraping on the floor with COVID, like that's how bad it was. He's like, it's better than a prison cell, you know, and I'm like, what the hell? I didn't go to prison. I'm sorry. I just didn't go. I don't get it. Like, it's not my thing. Although, yes, I get my whole recovery, like, you know, my using and drinking, it was my own prison and all that great stuff. That's great. But like, I didn't literally go to one. So it's hard for me to relate, you know?
I was in county lockup. I've been to county lockup. I mean, like,
Well,
It's in 30 days and counting. That usually surprises people when I'm like, hey, because like I think what this is kind of funny. I was me and a girlfriend of mine went and did this. I love aqua aerobics. I love swim aerobics. I don't know. I think it's the funnest thing on earth. But anyway, I was at swim aerobics. I'm in the steam room afterwards. Me and my friend were just cracking jokes. I think we made a joke about an 8-ball or something like that. And this woman, you hear from the steam go, "Who said that? Is that? I thought you were a soccer mom." And I'm like,
like,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
really quick, never mind. I just had a COVID dog. Sorry.
but that's the great thing. That's the great thing about recovery is despite the fact that you were in prison and you were in a cell and got clean in a cell, no one would look at you now and go, wow, that guy's been to prison. Like you truly can recover, and you're a testament to that. And
Absolutely.
I love that. And I love that for all of us, that we can just be our true authentic selves now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so true. And it's important. Like, I mean, I always go like, okay, I mean, people go, but you've come through so much worse, because sometimes like there's moments in my sobriety in the last 15 years where I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. Like, not even a concept, like if I could possibly get through it. And people will be like, oh my God, but you've overcome like being in a psych ward and learning to walk again and talk again and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I've already gone through it. You know what I mean? Like I've never gone through this experience. Like this one seems really hard. But one of the key things though, and I think this was so important for my sanity and my sobriety during COVID, the lockdown part of it, was that because we work together, we live together, we
travel together,
we do everything. We did COVID, we did everything together, that I needed my own time, like my own like Jenny moments, because we couldn't get in cars and drive around and go places, and do things. So I would walk. And like till this day, that's my thing. Like I walk and, I would be binge watching shows and I'd be like doing my little 5-pound weights, or like little stuff, I would try to do right things, but I also wasn't punishing myself and thinking like, I need to be, all the things that I used to think were so important. Like I need to be in good shape and this and that. Like I was like, fuck it. My husband, excuse my language, but my husband loves me. Like I'm good. We're going through this. Like this is something none of us expected, and they're all new experiences for us. And so I started doing heavy, intense therapy, and that really helped me.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I tried to find a therapist during COVID. She told me. That was a weird experience. So I was fairly upbeat the first part of it. I think part of that was trying to keep my kids, going and happy and all of that stuff, and trying to put on a brave face. And plus, we could go outside, we could walk around, we could go to Central Park. But when it truly got way too hard for me was and I knew it was coming. I just knew it, like when you just know it's coming. And I think anyone with mental health issues, especially with depression and stuff, it's like, and anxiety, you mix that all up together. And I'm like, look, it was like I was looking at the calendar, counting down to like into December. I'm like, oh my God, like please let some of these restrictions lift. Like I just want to be able to go to a gym. And then like January came and I still couldn't go to a gym. And that wasn't even about weight. That was about, I wanted to leave my house. And it became very difficult. And January and February were very much about me counting down till March, just like you said, doing the thing that was going to get me through to the next day. And I'm so lucky to have the support that I do. And being in New York City, I believe you guys are in LA, so many people left that I'm so thankful for my Instagram community and the friendships that I had made all over the country. Even though they were virtual, I had people to talk to and that understood me. So I've never appreciated my social media, Instagram community more in my life than now. So that was really big. And also Lexapro is very helpful.
I think that it's great because each one of us, we're all very open about our recovery. And I think that that helps others stay sober. And I know personally, it helps me stay sober because whether or not you realize it, hopefully, you know, somebody out there is watching and thinking, oh, wow, well, they're inspiring me. And that makes me want to keep going. Even though, I mean, the pandemic has been insanely unpredictable and crazy. And I so can relate to what Martha said about, you know, I just want to be able to go to the gym. It's not even about my weight. It's about being able to go and having these restrictions lifted. So I have found that one of the most, I've been pleasantly surprised in some ways as well during COVID. I know that Jen and Tim, you guys said that you've kind of like reinvented yourselves in a way. And I feel like a lot of people have, in a way where obviously now we have these great Zoom panels where you can communicate with people from all over the world, all over the country. Like, what are some other silver linings that you all have experienced from the pandemic? Like, what are the positives?
The positives are what the pandemic taught me, and I'll speak for both of us, that 95% of this other stuff out there doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. I've lost friends to COVID, obviously to addiction and everything, but it makes me grateful for the simple things in life. You know, my wife, my parents, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, my children, her stepchildren, that we're able to reinvent ourselves and start some other things, that we are able to generate income, that we are still in the position where we're in our place in Florida now. So we got our vaccines and we're able to come down here.
We got vaccinated in LA over a month ago.
But it made me realize, though, that so many things are relevant, and you found out real quick who your true friends are. And I can count them on a hand. And my acquaintances that reach out. But the social media has been great on one side, but if I could get rid of it, I would get rid of it in a minute. Just because we went to the Florida Keys a couple weeks ago, and Jen's like, can I have one day without you on your phone? So I deleted Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook for 5 days. And I noticed now where we took little Mackenzie, my 5.5-year-old, her stepdaughter, to the beach today. I wasn't on my phone at all. There's some great people, but a lot of it is just, I'll never meet these people. They're not.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, I just think that it's true what you're saying. And I don't mean to cut you off because I really always do that. And I want you to finish. Go ahead.
It's too late. That thought's gone.
Okay, good.
I mean, that's just...
So for me as well, though, and I couldn't agree with you more. And thank you for saying that, Tim, is that like, as soon as we got sick, okay, once we started losing all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, is the world coming to an end? Like, is this it? You know, and then, you know, things started kind of unraveling even worse. And I saw it wasn't just about us, and it wasn't about the next door neighbor or someone. It was on a whole, like on a scale, like all of us were, a lot of people were losing jobs and all this stuff. And then we got sick. And after we got sick, I really had to reevaluate my life. And I did, because when we were on our deathbeds, I had to say goodbye to my husband twice. We were on the phone with Cedars-Sinai, and I was like, and they were like, bring her in, get an ambulance, we'll get an ambulance now, it's time. And, you know, they were going to ventilate me, I mean, the minute I got there. So, and that happened 2 different nights of the 8 weeks that we were sick. And I just looked at him at one point, and all I'm thinking is, I'm just trying to take a breath. They're saying, bring her in. And he's like saying goodbye to me. And I'm like, and I looked at him and I was like, I want to die, you know, and I'm doing that breathing thing. I want to die looking at you, not in the hospital. And like, that really hit me. Like, I just got married 6 months prior, and like, I'm saying goodbye to my husband. Like, it was a moment.
But it was also the people that had food delivered, that sent stuff throughout the country when we were so sick, and people that you wouldn't think. And what else it let me know is people you thought would be there, not a peep, not a phone call, nothing. So it made us reevaluate things. A lot of things. Then it made me reevaluate right here, right now, where I have been in the last
what I realized is, and I was saying this to you ladies earlier, is that, you know, we've been on survival mode, all of us, on a global scale. We got through it, but now that I can take a breath, like a real breath, I'm exhausted. Like I'm mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I'm exhausted. And the social media, like the recovery industry in itself, not the program, you know, not like
Working,
you know,
in
anonymous
the treatment
anonymous programs, but the recovery industry has really given me a really bad taste in my mouth. I think that there's a lot of people that are doing some dangerous things out there, and there's also some really great people. But I'm not here anymore to get ahead, or like, it's not about like, you know, I need to get this and that, and I've had it all. Like I've had it all in my life, and I'm grateful to say that. Like I've had money, I've had millions, I've had nothing, I've had, you know, jobs, no jobs, but I want my second half of my life to be happy, and I get to figure what that means, you know, and that's allowed me to have this moment right now to say, I'm so tired of so many things that I just want to feel my spirit.
Love that. I can totally, so a few things that I can relate to is earlier you said, you know, when people look at your life and they go, well, you've been through this, you've been through that, you've conquered this, you know, you're a domestic violence survivor, you're a suicide survivor. What's this? What's another thing? And you're like, it's another thing.
Yes.
Like, stop acting like because I've survived it, like 7 different tragedies, that I'm somehow Wonder Woman. I'm just another person.
Thank you.
I'm just another person. And we all have the deck that's dealt to us, and however that deck is stacked, you know, like whatever being, entity, higher power puts that deck like that, whatever. But whoever stacked my deck was like really trying to mess with me. But the thing is, I don't like this concept. I think it's very difficult, especially with women, because the female experience can be difficult enough as it is, but then you throw in, well, now because I'm a rape survivor, apparently, everything's gonna be fine. And you're just like, stop, like, just stop. Like, I get to have a bad day. I get to have a bad year, and I get to have a bad week, so let me just have it. And I think being heard when you're a survivor is so important, and it's not something that you're given. I was recently told that I needed to tamp down sharing my trauma to be part of a recovery organization. And I'm like,
you keep doing you. Don't change a thing. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you need to tone it down, because I love your energy. I love your truth. And you're a truth speaker.
I just want to be like, girl, like you're speaking my words right now, my feelings.
But with all that said, like I really did, I think, and then what you're saying about, I wrote a blog very early on in the pandemic, and it was, I think I called it like pandemic. Now I have a pandemic part 2, but pandemic part 1, I predicted that we would have a spike in usage, that we are going to have a second pandemic, that this is just the gateway to all kinds of problems we're going to come out with. Not to talk, not even just what we're going to come out with as far as residual effects of COVID, as far as breathing problems, heart problems, things like that. But we're seeing it now with increased liver disease, and women, our bodies, as equal as we want to be, our bodies are not made to handle alcohol the way a man's body is.
Nope.
And that's just pure science.
So for people listening, what you just said is key. If you took Jennifer and I, and both at 18 years old, we started drinking abusively. Her life expectancy is 36 years old. Mine is 68, because women cannot metabolize alcohol the way men can. That's why you see a lot of women that might have never drank in their life, or a little bit, but they hit 30, 35, 40. They go through a midlife crisis, a pandemic, a divorce, a death, whatever, and they start drinking. I've seen them within 2 to 3 years be dead from complete organ failure that quickly. I mean, this is nothing to mess around with. And then you've got opiates and all this other stuff on top of it. It was interesting when I think Randi had said, we have this pandemic within a pandemic, but unfortunately for the past 8.5 years, I've been involved in this opiate pandemic and the addiction, as Randi has, my wife has. We deal with pandemics constantly.
So we get our phones, I'll give you a small example. 2 days ago, we get 3 interventions all in one day. And so Tim and I are talking to families for about an hour and a half, each family. Then 6 people need treatment right here, right now, and they have no insurance. So all of a sudden, they put it on my husband's shoulders that he has to get them into a free treatment center and whatever part of the country, right? And my husband, because he doesn't turn people away, is doing this. And it's 8 hours of draining of energy and giving your all. And we all know how to, what this is about. And it's so much work, and we get nothing but calls. And some families are even saying, I've already made my peace with my kid, they can die. I mean, we have those calls, that was really hard the other day hearing that from a family. But then we also hurry up and save, and we're we don't save anyone. You know what I mean? We don't do that.
But somebody had talked about death earlier too. I when I got out of prison 8 months later on my 21-month sobriety date, my 20-year-old son died from an accidental drug overdose. And I've been to 150 funerals, but anyone that has someone die, call Tim Ryan. And these, I understand where these families are at, but unfortunately, most of them live through their dead loved one. I don't. I celebrate the time my kid was on this planet. And I'm grateful for the time, but I don't live through the day he died. But these families automatically, there's no boundaries, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trauma therapist. I'm not a grief therapist.
Well,
so
I'm going to be even a little bit more harsh and be really real, because I can't have no edit button. But I said to him the other day, it hit me. I was listening to yet another family going, somebody reaching out, calling him saying, you got to call so-and-so, and so-and-so's son's friend died or whatever. And I looked at him and I went, no. And he looked at me and he's like, but I go, why do you have to relive your son's death every time somebody had kid or somebody's died? Why is it his job to go into that painful place every single day? If he's helping somebody is one thing, but he's not their therapist or we got a call. I've been working on a girl for 2 years. She would reach out to me and I'm like, okay, it was first her husband, then it was her. Finally, she's like, I need help. And I was like, here's my husband's number, call him, right? Because he takes the calls. So I get on the phone and I have a conversation with her, and she starts telling me all the details of the things that the husband has done, right? That's horrible. But I realized I couldn't shake it off. I hear people die. Today I heard a really dear friend of mine died. And I knew this really hurts. I'll feel it later, but I could keep going, right? Throughout my day. I couldn't shake this one off for 5 days. And my husband, I looked at him, I go, something's off, babe. I can't shake this woman's conversation about the worst details that I could possibly hear coming from a woman about the things that she has to experience with her husband, And I went, I'm not a therapist. I can't sit here and hear if people want help, whether me saying, I'll talk to somebody, or maybe you need to go to a 12-step room. Maybe you need to see a therapist. Whatever it is I do, I can do that. But I don't want to know all the intimate details of someone's life, because I don't know how to not process it without taking it so personally.
And
I can totally agree with you. And I think that just comes from being a very empathetic person. Yeah. And empathy is amazing. And you really do need to work in this community and hear these stories day in and day out. And regardless of if you're making money from it or not, if you're just, I'm an influencer. I have a blog. I haven't set up some great, I don't have a book. I don't have anything. But boundaries is something I have to use, because when my trauma, I wear it on my sleeve. But also, I share my story so other people are comfortable sharing their story, but that doesn't, one thing, I don't speak to anybody who's using or currently using. I don't do that. I can't do that. I won't do that. I can't, as much as I hate the fact that somebody is going through trauma or coming to terms with their trauma, I can't hear it when they're using. Mm-hmm. That puts me in a place. Also, like I said, I don't do sounding boards. I'm not here to absorb your trauma, but I do know how to direct you to the resources that you need. If you're in a domestic violence situation, and I've had several women reach out to me on Instagram after I share my story of a decade of abuse, saying, I'm in a domestic violence situation. And I'm like, I don't need to know the details. I know exactly what it's like to have your whole life monitored, to nearly, die at the hands of the person you think you love. I know that feeling. And, I don't want to start, if somebody starts telling me their story, it makes me relive my story. And then I feel like I'm playing this, like the trauma Olympics, and I'm not here to play the trauma Olympics. But if you want 3 things you can do right now to get out of an abusive situation, I will tell you those 3 things. And I've had multiple women on Instagram reach out to me, and I've told them, save my number in your phone under anything but my name. Save it under furniture store. I will be your contact person that is out of state, does not know your husband. Like, send me your location and I'll know it's you, and I will send the police. I'll be your outside person, but I don't need your details, right?
You bring up a point, though, that I tend to forget about. Domestic violence and child abuse within this pandemic has skyrocketed.
Well, I can't imagine if I was stuck at home with my abusive ex. He would already kill me. Right. And unfortunately, that's happening. We couldn't get through a Saturday afternoon together without him beating me. I don't think we would have got through the first 2 weeks of the pandemic. Well,
look at it. Look, I'm sorry that's happened, but look at a lot of the kids too. Their safety zone was the schools. Right. For a meal, for a guidance. Mandated reporters. None of it. I mean, this has thrown this entire world upside down.
Yeah, but I think it's also brought out in us, like you said, finding out who's actually there for you, who's actually there for the community, who's there for each other, who's looking out for who. And, you see there's some heartfelt things that have kind of came out where people are starting to notice their neighbors. Maybe they notice their elderly neighbor and they're checking on their neighbor. I feel like some people are going to leave this. I mean, as much as we could talk about the negative things, we can also, I believe we can leave this with a greater sense of community and helping others. And I do want to circle back to what you said about there are things going on in the recovery community, because there have been openings for programs and different stuff to come about. And I recently found out that someone who is unlicensed in any form is charging $1,400 for 45 minutes of sober coaching. That breaks my heart, because it just blows my mind. And then on the same hand, I know people like my friend Michelle Smith, Recovery is the New Black. Like, she's down there in trenches helping Jen Elizabeth, another great friend of mine. She's out on Skid Row doing her part. So, this has been a real time for people. I feel like I'm seeing people's true colors in this situation.
Absolutely.
And we know what's going on.
6 weeks ago, I spent 4 hours, a buddy drove an hour to pick me up. We drove 4 hours into Northern California to go to a homeless encampment, spent 12 hours there trying to find a mother's daughter. And we found her boyfriend and the police and ultimately got a hold of her, but she didn't want help, but we know she's okay. what really bothers me is the people on social media that want to talk about, well, you should have done this. They've never been in the trenches. They've never been in a homeless camp. They've never been in a trap house. They've never stood next to a mother at a funeral as we're burying their child or their spouse. They've never done any of this. So until you've been there and you've seen it, I mean, I don't comment on things I haven't experienced myself or I've participated in because I have no experience talking about it. But you get a lot of people that, but anyhow, whole nother subject. Back to more COVID stuff. Come on, Randy, what else you got on the COVID side?
I've been so enchanted by everything you guys have been saying. I didn't want to interrupt, but no, it's like I'm so grateful that I know all of you. And Tim, I'm just getting to know you, but I think you're awesome. Jennifer, you're amazing. Martha, we live 2 blocks away from each other, and I'm so sorry I've been out of town because I too work in the recovery industry, and I can so relate to what you're saying, Tim and Jen. It's like we have to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. And we have to remember to practice self-care. And those boundaries are so important because it's so easy to get wrapped up in other people's, I don't want to say drama, but since we're in recovery, we all know how it feels and how hard it is since we've been there. And so we can't help but just want to reach out and help as many people as we can. But there comes a time where, like you said, Jen, you were like, stop. Why do you have to relive this? Don't call this guy back.
Yeah. And
what are the best words you taught me?
No. So I learned the first words I ever learned in recovery from day one. My sponsor wanted me to say, that's inappropriate. No, I don't know. And please help me or help me, right? 4 hardest words I've ever had to learn. And I've had to, because my husband, like, we're all in the trenches in different ways, you know, we have been, and we've been we've been giving back, you know, all of us have. And my husband has literally been on the grounds, like in the trenches for 7 years. And I was on the ground. I went through all that stuff. I did it, but my story is different. You know, I did it differently. But the first 5 years, I went into a crack house, you know, and got a sponsor, and that was all 12-step related stuff, right? Like, and it was 12-step, like my sponsor and I are taking, you know, helping people, but then I had it on the shows and stuff, but I don't chase addicts and I don't chase alcohol. Like I can't chase someone's recovery more than they are. But I can help and lead people, you know, and I can tell people through my experience, and that's how I've been able to do it. My therapist and I kind of figured it out. Like my way was doing it one way. I was a one-way thing. Like I spoke, I let people connect, have a feeling, you know, I was able to, you know, I do it on TV, whatever it was I was doing. But in came Tim in my life, and it was 2 ways. You know,
tornado and destruction.
Yeah, so like I'm hearing it, I'm feeling it, I'm hearing it, I'm feeling it, I'm living, I'm here, and so it just got very like there was no boundaries. Well, so I had to put boundaries down for, you know, Tim and I, and also I had to the boundaries were really important to me because I don't want to ever mislead somebody down a wrong path either. And I don't want to pretend that I'm a therapist because that's not my thing. I'm not.
Yeah. As far as that, how to direct and lead people, one thing for me is, so I got sober through therapy. I did not do the 12 steps. I didn't do AA. Now I have a lot of experience. A lot of my friends did AA, you know, things like service. I immediately wanted to be of service to my community. You know, I think that's something that when you're just trying to better yourself, you'll want to do anyway. You know, like you'll want to give back in some way. And like, so you know, my service was telling my story, sharing, all those, I did those things, but because of my complex PTSD, I can't go into a room of strangers. I can't, it's not a safe space for me. And so I've learned that when people reach out to me looking for help, I ask I try to meet them where they're at, you know, like, are you at the point where you don't have $1 to your name and you have nothing and you need to crawl into the nearest AA meeting? If that's where you're at, go, please, now. But I also know how to ask them, because with my CPTSD, when I tried to do meetings, it often was a scary thing for me and I would leave triggered. So I also know when to be like, maybe you want to address some things in therapy first and go that route. And I think, the more I've seen all the different ways that people have recovered, I've seen people who do the 12 steps, but they go to therapy for a year first, or maybe they do the 12 steps for a year or two, and then they find holistic type things they get into. But it's however you build your foundation, wherever that need to become sober comes from.
Yeah, no, don't get it twisted that just because we do the 12 steps.
Oh, no,
not you.
Perspective. I was throwing in the perspective.
People need to understand there are multiple pathways to sobriety. Some are Bible thumpers, some are faith-based, some are Christian, some are smart recovery, refuge recovery, some work out, some see a therapist.
Yeah.
Some are atheists.
Some do drum circle. I used to do that. I love it.
Do what works for you, man.
So drum circle.
I found drum circle 3 years ago. It changed my life. I cannot believe that I've lived without it for this long. Like there's been so many things that I've implemented through the last 15 plus years of my sobriety that have really like upped my game. You know what I mean? Plus, the 12 steps and sponsorship and all that stuff. And I don't want to lessen that, but I don't want to make this about a 12-step base, theory, because it's not. There are many ways that you can live in abstinence and you can live in recovery. And I just encourage people to seek it and find it, and never give up, never give up. Like, that's my thing. It's like, people go, oh, how did you make it as a successful model or actress or in Hollywood, even now, 100 years later? And I'm like, I really think we have a little 5.5-year-old. I really think that it's consistency, and I feel like it's the same thing as well for recovery. I always want to be open to be teachable. I never want to know. I know now with like a lot of yesterdays put together, I know very little. Like, that's what I'll tell you for sure. However, I have tools. I have tools, and I'm grateful to say that. Yeah, I mean, you guys.
But I think the best thing for me, the different tools I've learned, it's so strange. Some of the stuff, like journaling, was a very difficult thing for me to do. And I bought a journal. And I was staring at it, and I would stare at it every night. Like, it was on my little desk, and I'd be on my couch, and I'd be like, there's that journal. But the reason I couldn't keep a journal is I had a narcissistic mom. I was in a narcissistic abusive relationship. I never had boundaries or privacy. Everything I ever wrote down was read. I never, my ex, he had spyware on the computer. I was required to give all of my passwords. So I never had any privacy. So the concept of writing what was in my head into a book that could be found and read terrified me. But it was a woman at Dry, Wyoming, and I'll never forget. She just started talking to me on Instagram, like chat. Randomly, she was like, hi. She's like, how are you doing? And I was honest. I said, I'm doing okay, but I swear this journal's really pissing me off. She's like, how's a journal pissing you off? I said, I keep looking at it and I can't write in it. And I was able to speak to another human being about why that journal felt like a mountain to me. And I'm like, I'm scared to write in it because somebody might read it, because I never had privacy. Mm-hmm. And then she told me, she said, put that phone down, go over and write a page. I have wrote every day since then. I went as far as, I actually have it here with me. I art journal every day now. So every day I paint in my art journal.
Ooh, good for you.
And wow. So just that one simple conversation, that one me actually being honest when somebody asks me, how are you doing?
That's what you say. Jen will be like, how are you doing? Don't tell me you're great. I'm struggling. I'm in pain. I'm sad. I'm lonely, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, whatever. she's really helped me to speak my truth, which is huge, and have boundaries, because I had 3 cell phones. If they rang at 2 in the morning, I answered them. And she said, you see this, it's called do not disturb. At 11 o'clock at night, this is turned on. But I'd have these, I don't want to throw mothers under the bus, but I'd have these select group of mothers that think I'm like their kid's surrogate stepfather, and they would be drinking and call my kid relapsed again. Your kid's relapsed 100 times. Why do you keep calling me? I'm not a therapist.
At booty time zone.
You know, I'm giving you Al-Anon. I've given you a therapist. Don't. Well, you need to help my son. Well, you can hire me as a sober coach, and I'll work with your son. Shut them up right away. They don't want to pay anything. They want everything for free. But I've learned to shut things down, because I need self-care. I need quality time with my wife. We need quality time with the kids, her mom, my parents, whatever we're doing, you know.
Yeah.
And when it works. I mean, this is believe me, we're not working with unicorns every day. We're working with people that have a progressive and chronic disease that can kill them, that are hurt, that are broken. We work with the land of dysfunction, and I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else, but there's a time to work and a time not to.
Yeah, I think I've had to find that balance a lot during the pandemic, because the kids aren't leaving the house to go to school. There isn't that natural flow of the children leaving to go to school and then coming home. And then I'm not on my phone for a few hours. It's like the work day and the day just kind of bleed into the night, and it's all creeping into all parts of your life. And yeah, it's kind of funny. I noticed we haven't been turning the TV on the past 2 months. I think we're TV'd out.
We've binge watched everything that's ever come out on television, so we're out.
We're out.
Oh my God. You guys, this has been absolutely amazing. And we're going to wrap things up here, but I wanted to give you all a chance to promote where people can find you. Tim, where can people contact you and Jen to hire you, not, have you be another surrogate? And Martha, share your details as well, but how can we find you all on social media, and what are you all up to?
You can find us at our website, www.dope, DOPETOHOPE.com, dopetohope.com. You can call us at 844-611-HOPE, 844-611-4673. Send me an email, tim@dopetohope.com. We do speaking events, we do interventions, we do sober coaching, sober companion, yada, yada, yada. Tim Ryan, Dope to Hope on Instagram and Facebook, A Man in Recovery on Twitter.
I'm Jennifer Gimenez, Gimenez on all my platforms. And
see, you were the smart one.
Yeah. I just kept it
wasn't.
simple.
I just thought, cool name. You know what I was going to call myself? The Professional Addict. And that didn't go over too well.
No, I'm a marketer, and I'm like, no.
Thank you so much for having us on.
This was amazing.
Thank you. Like, what a gift and what an honor.
Thank you, because I know you guys are all we're all so busy, and it feels like we're really giving back by doing this and sharing our stories with other people. And Martha?
Yeah, so you can find me at Martha Recovering Out Loud. My blog is myoutloudrecovery.com, and I'm mostly on Instagram, so peep me there. I am on Clubhouse. Also, if anybody wants to hire me, they can contact me on Instagram. Yeah, but it's been awesome, and it's so great to meet you guys. And
Awesome.
Jennifer, I love your energy too. I think I love meeting other powerful, confident women in recovery.
Hold on, Randi, where can we find you?
Thank you.
How can people hire you? What do you do?
Well, you can hire me for public speaking, sober coaching, sober companioning, and interventions. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at World of Randi. I'm on Clubhouse as Randi Newton, and here on Facebook. So hit me up. I'm available for work. I'm not interested in being a surrogate parent right now, but I'm always happy to help lead people in the right direction and provide resources to get you guys to where you need to be. And I'm sure Soberocity is going to be posting a link to this.
Yes,
and also going, oh, great. And posting some resources as well. And so great.
Awesome.
I have a couple of comments quick before you guys go from both Instagram and Facebook. One of them is from Amy, and she said working in the treatment space through both phases of COVID lockdown has been rough. Thank you again, both of you, and Jennifer, for talking to your girls in Region 10. You touched our girls.
I love.
Hi, Amy.
Love you, Amy.
Amy D, Michigan, in the house.
Love you.
And then we have from Karen, who said that boundaries are life-saving. We have Mark, who said, thank you for sharing. Your stories are really inspiring. We have a comment here from Zoom from Abra that said, wonderful talk. Thank you all for your transparency and honesty. I love you, Tim and Jen. And we have one
we love you, Leonard.
from Erica that is addressed to everybody. And it's, what's your go-to distraction?
Ooh. Ladies first.
Sugar.
Sugar. Go to distraction.
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie, my Dyson vacuum cleaner. I start cleaning. It's like my distraction. It's OCD. I know.
I don't have a go-to distraction. I'll go binge drink coffee, but I like to go out and water ski, barefoot water ski. And I've got to get out because the post-COVID, the long hauler stuff I had, this next week I will be out barefoot water skiing.
Okay,
That's
so
what I do.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not as adventurous. I just watch lots and lots of murder mysteries, and like everything ID has ever made, no matter how crappy it is. By the way, I actually binge watched I Murdered My BFF, and I'm never living on a cul-de-sac next to a very lonely woman again, ever. That sounds dangerous.
That's
But yeah. Oh, also I got it. I binge watched I Survived. They have 11 seasons, y'all.
So if
11.
you want to talk about binge watching, the one thing we binge watched during COVID, we binge watched a lot, but we watched every episode of Blacklist.
20
And
episodes.
I'm telling you,
per season.
there's 20 episodes per season. There was 10 or 12 seasons, but it all comes together. Blacklist was one of the best shows. Watch it. There's some crazy stuff in that one.
But now that spring is here and it's gonna get warm,
And go out.
what I do want to like let people know is try to take those moments for yourself during this time, you know, and try to have like outside ventures. We went to the ocean today and I swam with Mackenzie and we were mermaids, and so she believes there's mermaids now, because I still believe there's mermaids. So I felt like I was with God. Like that's how I found my peace. Like ocean, like for me, changed it. It changes the game. Like, so for somebody, it might be a park. It might be something like find what works for you and own it.
For me, I also want to just say one more thing. And so this time that I got with my kids, and so early, so I didn't get sober till my kids were like 13 and 11. So I almost feel, part of me feels really lucky to have like this bonus year of just being with them and connecting with them for a year.
Awesome.
Like I would have never got that opportunity without this pandemic. And so it's kind of like my kids are my distraction, but it's good because they're at this really cool age where we can, you know, I've shown them all my favorite movies. Like, I think that's one of the best things about being a parent. And then you're like, have you seen Tommy Boy? And then it's like, let's watch Tommy Boy.
She hasn't watched it. We brought this up the other night and I said, Tommy
Have
Boy
you
is one of
lived?
the greatest movies ever made. we actually have Tom Farley, Chris's brother, coming on our podcast in 2 weeks. So
Did you
you've got
watch I Am Farley? Did you at least watch I Am Farley? That's the documentary about Chris Farley's life. And one thing, and I may cry when I say this, when you find out the number of rehabs he went to, and he was only and you know, he was trying, he really tried, like he tried. And it just proved to me, like, I rewatched his documentary as a sober person. When I watched it the first time, I was an addict, and I was just like, oh, this is funny, it's about Chris Farley. But watching it a second time as a sober person and seeing the fact that he tried so much and he tried so hard,
it's
and it
unfortunate.
sometimes still just doesn't work, no matter how much money you have, no matter who you are.
Well,
it made me appreciate what my sobriety.
Absolutely. And I want to say it can work, and it does work if, especially people that are, you know, we work in this circle a lot with celebrities, musicians, actors, actresses, trust fund people. The bottom line is, in that type of situation, you need to cut the yes people out of the mix, because there's people that will co-sign the addict or alcoholic's bullshit all day long because they have money and because of who they are, and all that needs to be taken away. Try sobering up a billionaire. It's not the easiest intervention to do, I'll tell you that. It's very, very difficult. Yeah. Randy,
Yeah, I
knows
think
about that.
Yeah, I think I think people, when I got sober, I paid for my own outpatient detox, and it's not cheap, and I'm
No.
not a millionaire. And it's made me see others who are like, oh, if I mess up, I'll just sign a check and I'll go back to wherever I'm going. And it makes me appreciate my sobriety, because I worked hard for it. And it's heartbreaking that it's so much more than just writing a check. You have to really want it. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I also, so my road to sobriety was, I got drunk and almost committed suicide and would have left 2 kids without a mom. So then when the pandemic hit, I quit smoking. I quit smoking when the pandemic hit, because I was like, if I end up dying because I'm a smoker, no, that's not an option for me. But but I think for me, my sobriety was life and death, and also for my kids. So they've helped me through the pandemic, and they've helped me stay sober.
So beautiful.
Great. It was a lovely meeting, everyone.
Thank you,
Love you
thank you,
guys.
thank you for having us.
thank you,
on.
guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Have an
Have a
amazing
great
evening.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.